evening, ladies and gentlemen. We have a very illustrious guest with us in the studio already. Manoj, thank you so much for joining us. For those of you who don't know Manoj, he's the MD South Asia for Bayer, and it's such a pleasure to have you here.
Thanks a lot, Mudit. Always a pleasure to talk to you. And thanks for inviting me, and looking forward for the interactions here.
Okay, great. Thanks. Now, we're so lucky to have Manoj here with us. And I just like to share 2 minutes with you about, why we thought about this show. I work with CEOs across the world. And like I shared earlier, there were so many insights that were coming through. And I said, I learned while working with them that there isn't only just life and there's all leadership. Both work together, because for people to be successful over a period of time, they need to succeed in both areas of their life. And very often, all of us face issues and, problems in life. Could be health, disease, problems at work, but leaders are there to help us, right? So let's learn from them. So Manoj, without further ado, let me just start by asking you to share with the viewers here really a little bit about your background and, your professional career and what's got you here.
And thank you, Mudit. So briefly, I'm a mathematician turned pharmaceutical leader. Yeah, a contrasting background to where I am today. Born in Lucknow, majority of the time, have been in the hostels, boarding schools in Dehradun, Srinagar. Then did my graduation from Varanasi, and then I started my professional life in an FMCG company. Got disenchanted very early. Then I did an MBA from a very unknown university and joined Cipla as management trainee. And here I am for the last 20 years in the pharma industry. Worked in India and majority, as you know, in Southeast Asia, Vietnam, Malaysia, Singapore, and now back in India in the last 3 years.
Fantastic. So tell us, what is it that, typically to have a blue-blooded career like this, right? You don't have the right names in terms of the educational institutions behind you. So what do you think has really been responsible for your success?
No, I think one aspect which often people say that leadership is about trade and it's not an acquired skill. I don't think that's true. Yeah, we have seen leaders across the board. We have seen educational backgrounds of a lot of entrepreneurs who have been highly successful. Doesn't come from a top level Ivy League sort of a college. Yeah, but there are also people who have studied in Ivy Leagues or IITs and they have gone to the top. So I think a lot depends upon how driven are you, what is your purpose in life, what are you looking at, and I guess that has really helped. And sometimes in life you are fortunate to get the right mentors. There are moments which are teasing you, and if you are brave and you don't really look at mediocrity, but you want to excel in something, I think those are the moments which helps anyone, and including me at that point of time.
Great, Manoj. I think it's very inspiring for a lot of people who are, our viewers here. And one of the things I'd like to ask you is, you mentioned mentors, right? So is there a special mentor that you think, you would like to mention or acknowledge who has actually helped you change the course of your life?
Actually, many. So I think there are mentors, but also mentors who helped me to decide at certain point of time, right? When I was growing up, and my brother was an IIT, and so the normal course is either you qualify and become an engineer, or you become a doctor, right? That was the most awarded profession at that point of time, and it was not easy. And I think my failure to get into a good engineering college, for example, and then getting a mentor who was who was essentially my father, saying life is not only around getting through a competitive exams. Yeah, you are here for a long haul. I think those open, candid discussions with my father did help me to open up and say there is life beyond IITs. There is life beyond just going and pursuing on some things. Yeah. And it doesn't really matter whether you would like to, you are studying in one college if you are not selected for whatever reason. I think in a competitive life that is there. So, pearls of wisdom with someone whom you can share your failures, I think as those mentors have really helped me. So definitely my father. The other one was was the founder of Cipla. I mean, where I worked very, very closely with him when I grew up. And things like, how can you take risky decisions? Yeah, how do you become flexible, agile, and something which I always believe in, not following mediocrity. Yeah, how can you stand out in looking at what works for the larger cause and not just for you? So those definitely are people who have helped me in what I am today, but also various events. Yeah, I think failures in my life have really helped me to aspire big.
So thanks, Manoj. I think you've been, really very candid, and I think it really helps the audience because it's inspirational, and for all the young people, out there who are going to, watching this being live streamed on LinkedIn and, all the other platforms. I mean, there's hope for all of us. And I think, one key thing that Manoj sort of pointed out is that life is a long haul, and your ability to, hang in there and, get the right, audience, pick the right opportunities, and actually show, because a lot of people, we've seen leaders across the world, not everybody shines at the same time, but the sky is large enough to accommodate all the stars. And that's what makes this world a great place. So thanks, Manoj, for that, very, very candid answer, because it's really inspiring. And, which really brings us to something which is, how do you, in this age, as I work with people, I also, work with people on mindfulness, and I help people to focus. But you tell me, I mean, you've also grown up from this whole generation. How do you able to focus on those key important things in life, either at work or this with, despite all the distractions that are there, email, social media, etc.? What do you do?
Yeah, it's honestly not easy. Yeah, and if I say that I am on top of it, I think I'm absolutely speaking a lie. We all struggle, and we all have our moments where we are flooded with so many things, right? Information, notifications, emails. Yeah, and I think we all struggle. We find our own way of finding what's the sweet spot, what is working for you. Yeah. One thing which I think helps and is around in the whole topic of around self-awareness. Yeah, how much self-aware are you? Yeah, how much feelings you have, for what you are doing, how it is impacting others. Things like those definitely help. Of course, I mean, shutting yourself off periodically from social media does also helps, right? Whatever terminology we may use it, a digital detox or something like that. But in real life, it's not. It's important that you are a little bit more aware about yourself. What is your strength? I mean, how do you want to? I mean, for example, when you say mindfulness, and I mean, you are an expert there, Mudit, not me. But simple things like, how do you keep yourself calm and quiet in a stressful scenario, right? Many of time as leaders, your ability to keep calm in situations which are challenging, tough, where it's easy to lose your cool, is something where I think now we have used to this term of self-awareness, right? But in the past, we were just saying, maturity or look at things. I guess that also helps to stay focused, being what you want to look at it. And last, which I always feel is important, which is right in the childhood to now to when you are working in a corporate life, is what is your value system? Where do you place your moral compass? At the end, if you are sure that you are doing something good, meaningful for yourself and for the community or stakeholders, if you're working in a corporate life, you are doing good for everyone, I am sure that helps you to again go back to the focus where you want to be. Yeah. So internal moral compass or value systems, I think that makes the core of as a leader or as an individual in whichever capacity you work.
Very true, Manoj. I think you've you touched on some very important things. I think first, the admission that you have to find a sweet spot, right, between all the distractions. So all of us are on this journey of trying to get perfect, and everybody, you need to find your own sweet spot. But I think there's some other things that you brought out was your moral compass and your value systems, etc. Would you like to share with the audience, any time where you might have got tested, right? Because you had a long career, and what got you back? Even if didn't went astray or whatever. I mean, what got you back, or what gets you back every day? What reminded you?
So in life, there are moments where you have to prioritize things. For example, we are in the COVID times. You're looking at you have to manage business, but also the safety of employees is important, right? So do you pull out your customer facing team in a time when you know that the business would get impacted? Yeah. What is right thing to do? Yeah. And I think so those types of moments where you are saying, no, business will come second. It's important, it's critical, but let me now at this point of time where I've always put business first or customer first, at this point of time, let us put our teams first, our employees first, their families first, because the safety is more important. Yeah. Similar, there are times when you look at it, what is more important for your family, but also you see that you may have to leave a city and to move. And I have lived in more than 20 houses in my 25 years of professional lives, right? So how do you balance it out in a manner where you are not compromising on anything, right? In the sense, but you are able to take some tough decisions, yeah, at the end, which could impact you personally. And I think those are the moments which sometimes you do wrong. Yeah, I mean, there are many things which I would look back and say I could have done it slightly better. But at the same time, those are the moments which where also have helped me. For example, I mean, I was just hardly 1 year in Cipla and moved to Chennai. Yeah, I didn't know the language, wasn't very comfortable in eating South Indian cuisine, morning, evening, afternoon. But that 1.5, 2 years of experience of in a very, very different or diverse market actually has helped me to be a better leader today. So those sort of experiences where you feel at that point of time, I'm not doing the right thing. Is it the right role which I'm doing? And then later on, you realize that the experiences which it has given, has made you a better professional.
Great. I think some great examples, because I think one is even adjusting to the diversity in India is important. And I think that might have helped you, as you worked in other countries like Vietnam, Malaysia, Singapore, because language changes, people change, behavior changes, everything. And, one more thing is, in terms of just your learning, right? So besides, 20 houses, I'm saying there's also so many opportunities for you to have actually, how do you keep abreast, right, with knowledge? Because life has changed dramatically from where we started all in our careers to what it is now and what's required. And not everything is taught. So how do you keep abreast in terms of your own learning? And, what do you do?
Yeah, no, that's a great question in today's time, because in the past, the knowledge sources were there, but the accessibility was a challenge, right? Today, I mean, I'm sitting in Guwahati right now, Mudit. I mean, we can virtually have a similar set of access to materials, right? Whether it's so, I am a avid listener of podcasts, so many podcasts, books for sure. So those are the two things which I would prefer, but also on the job training, observing other leaders, how do they talk, how do they communicate, what sort of things which I'm lacking, yeah, who is going to hold mirror to me, seeking feedback, which is also part of your mindfulness thing as well, right? How do you constantly seek feedback to be better aware of yourself? I think those are the four things which I would say: observing others, observing people who I think are doing a great work, outside, inside the organization, both ways. People who can give feedback to me, and then some podcast and some books. Yeah.
No, great. So, I mean, I think the feeling one gets is that today you have to be a constant learner. Gone were the days where you went to the right MBA. I think that happened for a certain time, but the world and technology has changed so much that it's important for everybody to realize that unless you keep up to date, I think, and the cycles are getting shorter and shorter, the way I see it in terms of technology. So if you're not, abreast with what's happening in your own industry, in technology, then, so one has to be a lifelong learner from what I've gathered from you. And I think that's a great, lesson, I think, for a lot of people who are here watching this across the world, right? And you also talked, what's very good is you talked about self-awareness, which is really important, because I think sometimes as a leader, you get so convinced that what's got you here will get you wherever you want to go in the future, and you don't really know, right? So, maybe you'd like to share with the viewers some examples of that self-awareness that helped you operate in different countries, or, you're being able to observe and take feedback from other people, something more substantial so that people can also learn.
Yeah. No, I think, whether we use it any other terminology, but later on, as we went through the MBA colleges and look at leadership, programs, and I think the self-awareness as one of the competencies and traits is deemed to be very, very important. And there's so much research around it that top people have, can acquire self-awareness piece. It's not a trait. Yeah. And in that, I think one of the early learnings around how do you communicate for people who don't talk the same language. Yeah. And, in Vietnam, not everybody speaks English. Yeah. How do you communicate to people? And I think they're practicing mindfulness, where body language plays a very important role. Your observation, your listening abilities plays a very important role. And in Vietnam, particularly, I think, being self-aware as to what is working and what is not working, because you can throw 15 ideas in the air. Yeah. And I remember one time, Mudit, in a Q&A session of a town hall, and we were essentially a pep talk with the sales guys. And I said, if we have to function as a good machinery, or a good, I gave the example of a car, that all the four wheels should be aligned and working at the same speed. Yeah. And this, I was talking about being agile, being fast, passion for performance and stuff like that. And I got poker face. I mean, nobody understood what I'm talking about. So what's the example of a car? Yeah. And that's where I think I started looking at it. How can I simplify my communication using English? Because I didn't know Vietnamese, though I was learning Vietnamese, but I couldn't really communicate to that level. How do you communicate better? How are you open-minded to understand, a little bit about, them more? Yeah. And how do you align your overall objectives, broader purpose of the organization and things like that? Yeah. So self-awareness absolutely helped me a lot to do better. Yeah.
No, great examples, and I can relate to that, because I mean, you have to work through interpreters. If you have a secretary and you think in English, and then they convert it into another language, and really that's a great test, because leadership is about being able to share what's in your mind, right? And make them see the same vision that you're seeing. And when you have a challenge, so I think the way you speak and the language and the examples that you use sometimes calls for simplicity. So example, I think that's a great example. Now, one thing that I picked up from your last discussion on moral compass also was a certain degree of compassion, right? When the whole world was reeling, and as everybody knows, right, CEOs compensation is linked to the bottom line. So I'm sure you would have felt, look, that's the end of my bonus for a long time now. If we don't, and yet you decided to keep people before business. So, that compassion in terms of being able to understand people, is it only at that time were you able to display it, or are you, do you feel that, when the whole world really had no choice, but are you also able to feel that, in other situations?
No, I mean, if you look at the example which I gave, definitely was during the COVID time. But I guess as a leader, if you don't have compassion in your day-to-day dealings, it's difficult then to drive. And I look at when you're as a leader, what you're looking at. Yeah, you are looking at not just compliance of processes or compliance of execution of a strategy. What you're also seeking from your team members and your colleagues is a commitment, right? And I think accountability and commitment can only come with when you are having a compassionate leadership. So, I mean, we as leaders, we are not just seeking compliance. I think that's a given in any organization, that you will follow the process of the rule book. Yeah. but you're also looking at that the team is having a commitment to what goals or objectives or KPIs, whatever you have defined. And in that, the compassion piece is extremely important, because that's where you are able to hold the team together, to be in unity on having a common goal in mind, right? So for the commitment to come in, I think compassionate leadership has to be. It can't be just a transactional leadership.
Yes, but no, that's very important. And I think one of the questions that I'm going to ask you is this typical thing, right? As leaders, we're expected to deliver, right? So you're supposed to deliver. Now, COVID might have been a slightly unusual situation for most of us, and the world, had no choice but to accept it. But let's look at a normal, now that things are coming back to normal. Okay. Yeah. And let's see, you have, somebody who is not meeting, let's say a direct report, who's not meeting his KPIs, right? And that not meeting any critical KPI will directly impact your performance as well as that of the organization. So what do you do? And how would you deal with a situation like that?
I mean, that's a situation which we face every time, right? Everybody has ups and downs. So I guess one is, having a conversation around him to understand what are the underlying reasons. Yeah. I talked about giving feedback. That is something which is extremely important. If we tell someone that he is not able to do it once in a year or twice in a year, that's not appropriate neither for him, nor for the organization, nor for you. Yeah. So I think those are the approaches which you will have and see. Then you form a discussion around what is needed, what support is needed, based on the discussion. So involving him or her, and that person makes, an action plan. So he owns that up rather than you try to, be in his her shoes. It does works most of the time.
Yeah. Yeah. So what I heard was constant feedback, right? So it's not that you wait appraisal time and you dock his bonus, but you tell people along the way, every day, both things that are working well, I guess, and things that are not working well. So they know exactly where they stand. And I think that's really so important, because as I worked with a lot of leaders, I think sometimes I found that, especially some sectors like IT, where today there's a scarcity of talent in India. And sometimes bosses are actually scared of telling their employees because they're really so worried that this guy is just going to up and, disappear.
Yeah.
And so there, but the fact that you've been able to do this over a period of time, I think is a great thing. And I think Debashish has a very good question, which I will take because, probably towards the end, which is really your purpose in life. So I think that's a great question. And I will take that. We're about halfway down. So let's move towards, and another question coming out is how leaders build leaders. I think that's something we can take immediately. So a question from Vijay, Manoj, is that how do leaders build leaders, and your views on the current ecosystem? So basically just take the larger question. How would you build another line of leadership?
So I guess one is, I believe in a culture where we don't really appreciate too much hierarchies. So how do we become an organization which is less hierarchical? Yeah. I mean, there are, of course, positions and roles and, defined roles and responsibilities could differ, but I think we can, which helps, people who are a little bit looking to move the next level, identifying talent in the organization and giving them various exposures, challenging assignments. It could be virtually anything. If you see that the person is delegating more is also, and not doing micromanagement at times, that has also helped leaders to build other leaders. Yeah. Those are my thoughts always for people who are talent and who can groom as a leader.
Yeah. So what I heard was, give people the opportunity, right? Give them a chance to shine and don't micromanage them, and guide, but, don't really tell them. So they all learn to find their, how to swim and keep afloat and manage. And I think that's what brings out the best in a lot of people. So let's just move to the next section, which is really, now which is in line with this about, leadership. But what is your advice now for, let's say, senior leaders, who are at the CXO level, but who haven't made, being a CEO yet, right? So what is it that really, what is it that you look for when you look at a succession plan, or, what would you advise? What do you look for?
Yeah, so the first end, I always look at it, if the person is aligned from a passion as well as for the purpose. Yeah, so there are a lot of individuals who have high passion, but they are lost in purpose. So I think as an organization, how can we guide them to have a little bit more purpose around it? Somebody who is aspiring for a next level, it could be CXO or otherwise senior positions within the organization. Always doing the right things from a moral compass perspective. I guess we talked about maturity or people, their behaviors. I think having a right attitude. Authenticity is something which is also very important. Being honest, I think, is one trait which is so underrated. Yeah, it's not easy in a commercial or in professional life to remain honest in a challenging environment, right? Because you also have to look at it. And sometimes these are, there are conflicts around, for example, simple things that should I look at profitability, should I look at net sales, right? And sometimes the way you approach both of things could be very contrasting. Yeah. So being authentic and transparent as a leader or as a professional is extremely important. And last, but certainly not the least, is we go back to what we said in the beginning, is around self-awareness, right? Making efforts to know yourself a little bit better. And manage yourself better. I think that is very, very important to grow up the ladder. Yeah.
Okay, great. So I think some of the takeaways were, I think what I heard very strongly was, one was authenticity, which is, you said, a very underrated trait. The second thing was transparency, then a certain moral compass, a certain maturity, right? Because I guess at that level, most people will have similar abilities to actually deliver results. That's exactly why they're there, right? To become a CXO. And I think that's very important in a sense that when you're in a large organization which has clearly defined values, it becomes easier. And, I'd like to share really some, an experience of mine when I was in the Middle East. So what tends to happen there is that you have a lot of people who come in there for temporary roles, and they don't have a longer vision within an organization. So I've had leaders, who've come in, and sometimes when there's a mismatch of values, etc., it becomes very, very difficult. So have you had any situations like that where, your leadership and you did not see eye to eye? And what did you do? How did you manage?
Well, I don't think on everything you will not see eye to eye, right? So there are, I think, how do you disagree or agree on a disagreement is something which is important as a leader as well. There would be moments where, for whatever reasons, your manager or the organization wants to take a alternate path which you are not even thinking of for the organization, right? The question is, if you have been able to communicate and being assertive, yet being, not losing sight that you are a well-wisher for the organization. I think it makes most of the managers appreciate, including me, because there is also times when I take a decision, or I may take a decision in future where my subordinates may not 100% completely agree to it. Yeah. So the ability for them to voice out their concerns, communicate that, and you being open to for critical feedback, I think that's extremely important. And then you agree on a plan which in the beginning you did not agree for it, but then you say, okay, let's do the best foot forward, and you drive that, or execute it well. So I think there are many moments in everybody's life where you feel that, oh, this decision could have been done in a different manner, but at the end you voice your concerns and you move forward. Yeah.
Okay, so I think one thing I heard was really, how you express your disagreement. And sometimes I think the best thing is, like you said, is voice your concerns, but we all have to move ahead in line with the way the leader thinks also. So I think, which is, I guess, I think it's a great takeaway. And I think Debashish has a question here, like, how do you deal with people who come from very hierarchical structures? Because see, and this is a really a problem that I see of changing the older structures, the older companies came from very hierarchical backgrounds. You spend so many years. I think my father never changed a job, and he's shocked at us moving across companies to a more agile system where today structures are breaking down. So anyway, the question really here was, how do you deal with somebody who are very hierarchical? What would you have done?
Yeah. So I guess, there was an old saying, right? The CEOs should not operate only from the CEO's office. Yeah. So I guess moving out, meeting teams in an informal manner does help. Moving people across hierarchies, across levels into projects which are important for the organization. So then they behave as a project team, as one team, as equals. Yeah. Addressing, a lot of Indian organizations where people, when you are at a certain level, even if you are at same age and maybe 1 or 2 years younger or elder, they talk and they tell you, oh, Manoj sir, I have done well. The sir thing comes up easily. And you point that out time and again that, we all are, working in one organization as colleagues. Yeah. So demonstrating that, time and again saying, apart from doing structurally different things so that they assimilate and behave as one, as part of the team, works. Now, is it a short formula? Surely not, because I think each individual, the way he reads the hierarchy is very different, because there are people who believes that the decision has to come from top. There, I think, how do you delegate more? How do you empower them? How do you give them accountability, to take the decisions is also important, right? So sometimes you transform the process. Not everything flies to a CEO or a vice president, and some things could be easily taken by a decision by a even a functional head, for example, or a department head. Those things does give a good message across the company that we are not just looking at a very hierarchical way of decision making, for example. Yeah.
Okay, great. So one of the questions I think, Gaurav is asking from, and Gaurav is from the UK with some experience in the pharma industry, a lot of experience actually. And he says his comment is, there are examples where founders appoint CEOs but don't assume the role till they're ready, right? And he gives an example of Gymshark is a 1 billion organization because the founder has a vision not to be the CEO till the time is right. So I think the question really is that, sometimes founders don't take on the role of the CEO because they just feel that it's not right. What is your opinion on that? Because you worked with some founders also. I think it'll be a good...
No, see, let's look at, it's the founders' way of looking at their business, right? They have founded it up. They are the entrepreneur. They have made it big. And every organization, we talk about culture or the recipe to success is very different. Yeah, it would be very different for Jeff Bezos to Apple, to any example. So I think what suits every organization looks at what is the sort of culture they are breeding and trying to So some founders are happy to do all the work. Some are looking at can we de-risk ourselves so that we have two people in the think tank on taking critical decisions? And I think that's the way it would be, what suits each individual and their stakeholders, whether it's a listed company, then shareholders, other people who are part of the organizations and all that. So I don't think, there is always one way to look at the organization, whether it is 1 billion or 20 billion or 100 billion organization. There are always, I think it's a good, somewhere there would be a good meeting point, would be what fits well for the organization at that point of time. What is their vision? What is their purpose? What is their objective? And who can drive that, at that given point of time.
Yes, I think so. I think the point you're making is that there's no one size fits all, and it's depends on the founder also. Like, I mean, I remember Bill Gates handing over, Microsoft to run because he felt that let somebody else take all the operational decisions so that he could spend more time thinking about what's right and, being more visionary, because it's always difficult to be an operational person, running it day to day, as well as, and of course, I think Microsoft is a great example of that, but it's also a great example of a company that missed a lot of opportunities, especially in the mobile space. And I think now they've, got their head around to what they're doing very well. So it's, and I think there's probably a bit of culture involved also, because especially if you were to look 10 to 20 years ago, a lot of the founders were very hands-on in India, at least, despite the fact that they may have, but that's changed because things are getting a lot more professional now. And I think a lot of founders also realize that, look, I brought the ideas to a certain level, and let me give it away to somebody who can do a much better job at that. And have you seen in your industry, let's say in the pharma industry, have you had any examples of, I think you work very closely with one, so maybe you can, give us some perspective on founders, both holding on and founders who have actually let go and found somebody else.
No, so the recipe of success is very different for each organization. There are many companies in the pharma industry from India who have done extremely well. They are global giants, as you know. India is a pharmacy of the world. Some companies have grown not only just India business but across the globe, and all sorts of models are there, Mudit. So it was difficult to pinpoint as to what founders are thinking. I think when we say all the founders are homogeneous, I think we are doing doing disfavor to a lot of entrepreneurs and founders who have over these years done differently. So there are all sorts of models. Some founders are absolutely in thick and things of their business. Strategically, operationally, they would have given to someone, right, a CEO or other models. There are some founders who have taken up the organization, built it up, and then have moved into a different direction. But there are some founders who have also taken the organization at a great length, and they are still looking at how do they manage it and take it to the next level. So there are all sorts of models, and I think whether it's Indian entrepreneurs or any outsider, right? When you look at today the digital companies, when we are on the Zoom platform, Zoom was an unknown entity 20 years back, right? And now it's a massive company. So I guess every company looks at it, what is working for them, and the agility to adapt and change makes the founder look at it in that point of time. Now, in that, as you were mentioning for Microsoft, there could be some missed opportunities, but it's always, in the hindsight, we can say, that was a missed opportunity. But otherwise, I don't think there is one size fits or one recipe for everybody in that context. Every leader looks at it, what is right for their organization, what is making sense.
Okay, so I think the takeaway there is really no one size fits all, and hindsight, you can always make a lot of decisions. So let's move on. There's one more question that I see from Sunil Singh before I continue. What is your advice if organizations is not seriously looking for leadership development, and you need and you being the CEO need to manage the business in the long run? What should be the CEO strategy? Basically, if a company is not looking at leadership development, and I think this is something that a lot of people feel from below. Because a lot of
I'll share my perspectives on this. I don't think any organization, any well-meaning organization can grow and do good without focus on their people. And you have worked, Mudit, in various organizations. I think every organization, we talk about in accounting working capital, right? Working capital is also human resource. More so in some organizations like IT or banking, where there is no cost of goods, it's only the employee cost. But the employee are the center of every. So I can't believe any organization who doesn't focus on leadership development. What process they adopt to it is something which could be is always debatable. But I think the core focus of organization to develop leaders and develop people is absolutely there. Any well-meaning organization will not have. anyone which is doing business, successfully conducting business, any sorts of business, any space, any industry, without the focus will not come. Now, I think sometimes what we look at it, that there would be a ready path, of career progression. I think if it is your career, you should be in the driver's seat. Make your career plan yourself. Discuss with your line manager. Discuss with the HR of the organization, and see what sort of experiences or challenges you want to include in that, so that those competencies which are missing in your profile, where you want to work upon, you actively work on it, right? So every 3 months, 6 months, you go back to your career plan which you have crafted for yourself. Be the owner for that. I don't think any line manager will become an owner for your career path. So being in the driver's seat for your own career, being a little bit selfish, is extremely important. Even if you devote, let's say, half an hour every 3 months on your career plan, I think you are doing fantastic for yourself. This is what is expected. But sometimes what happens is, in corporate life, we feel that the HR would make a career plan for us, and they will take us from one position to another position. And that's where I think sometimes we feel that the organization is not working for us.
Okay, so I think there's a great takeaway there, is basically take charge of your own career and actively involve and be engaged and look for opportunities and discuss this as to how you can make. I think that's a very good piece of advice, because a lot of people feel that, and I sense that across also as a leader. Sometimes people below don't, but then it's really a question of how active you are. So I think that's great advice there. So let's just come in. We talked about self-awareness, etc. What is your advice in terms of to aspiring managers who want to be CXOs in terms of executive presence, and what is your view on that?
No, it's important, like a lot of other things. Executive presence is important. That's your brand. And a lot of time your decisions which will affect you are taken when you are not there in that room. And your executive presence actually helps them make the decision. Your demeanor to display confidence is what I say is your executive presence. So extremely important, Mudit. Extremely important in any large organization, but also in small organizations that plays. And if you want to pursue a leadership role, executive presence is extremely vital.
Yeah, I think very well said. I think the key takeaway there is that a lot of decisions about you are made when you're not in the room. And I think, the way you behave and the way you conduct yourself, I think speaks volumes for, your own progress. So I think those people who are really not making the grade need to have a good look within. Being bright is not good enough. And I can relate back, myself, which is a moment for me also, because when you're probably younger, you're far more passionate, and you tend to occasionally say things and, with a lot of passion, and it perhaps could have been misinterpreted. And I think it takes mature leadership to be able to see that and discriminate between what is passion and what is actually being, is not being respectful. But very important, I think a lot of us don't realize. And now when I look back, actually, it comes back to appraisals, right? I've seen very often, both as a leader and both as a recipient, before, in a lot of organizations, there are those S curves, right? The bell curve has to be met.
Bell curve.
Yeah. And the bell curve is already, a leader already has to fit in all his people. So before you have that conversation, the bell curve is very often set. So a lot of the decisions are already taken about you. What is your, opinion on this bell curve, as well as, how can people be more prepared?
So I think as organization, including ours and most of the other organizations also are moving out of this bell curve. As you said, right? Bell curve gave a lot of employees a feeling that, it's all already pre-planned, or if there is an outlier. So I think in individualistic performance and reward recognition, a lot of companies are moving out of the bell curve. Executive presence helps to be, I think it also communicates as to what leadership, at the end of the day, if you are a leader or you are heading a small department, how much confidence you give to your own folks, your own team members, and to the people working around it. I think executive presence does inspire a lot of confidence, yeah, to, because essentially what is it? Yeah, it is around how do you communicate, how do you behave, yeah, what are your thoughts, and how do you give that clarity of thoughts, whether from whatever way. How do you network with people who are not just your part of the team? How do you meet as, as someone who's senior leader in an elevator for 3 minutes? I think those 3 minutes are absolutely critical for your executive presence. And how do you operate, as you said, right, in moments which are tough, in stress? How do you, because a lot of time we judge people in their behavior when they are under stress, yeah, and that is in totality is your executive presence. So in that sense, it plays a very important role. But does that profile fits into an executive in a bell curve shaped? I think we have a lot of companies are moving out of the bell curve and looking at what is an individual way of appreciating someone's performance and rewarding and recognizing that. Yeah.
Great. So I'm so happy to hear that, people are moving out of the bell curve, because a lot of times, you could just have X number of people, the top 5% who would be there, and a majority would come into the normal. So that's great news. But you said something very important, which I don't think a lot of people realize, right? What is your advice to somebody who meets, somebody very senior in the lift, and he has exactly 1 minute or 3 minutes? What should be the conversation, and what do you think will, as a CEO, when you were, meet somebody, what is it that in your mind, because you don't, not too many people are going to get, except your direct reports, not too many people are going to get more than a minute, or, just look at the vast middle majority, right? How often do they meet a CEO in a lift? What would you say in those 1 or 3 minutes, what to talk about?
Yeah. First thing is, I think treating as equals always, don't be bogged down in it, because if there is a communication which is father and son sort of a communication, I don't think in a professional career, then you will end up asking the right questions, right? So treating as equals, striking a conversation is important. So I mean, sometimes you will fail, right? You will, but at least your attempt to strike a conversation, asking the right questions. Beyond that, nothing. Ability to ask question at point. The CEO may say it's a foolish question, but okay, you give it. But at least your attempt to strike a conversation with a senior person does demonstrate your ability that you are fearless. You want to communicate with senior person. You are not afraid of anything, yeah, and you are treating them with dignity, pride, respect, but you are also treating them as equals. A lot of time that actually works very well in today's environment, where a lot of CEOs are actually. And I mean, CEO's position, and that for that matter, any senior level positions are very lonely. Yeah, I mean, you are looking forward for people to interact with you. You want that. So the flip side is that all the leadership roles are extremely lonely. Yeah, if you want to go for a cup of coffee, we have to invite 5 people. If there are a bunch of 5 colleagues who are sitting next to each other, they will give it a coffee. They will tap on each other's shoulder and say, okay, let's have a coffee at 11 o'clock. They will not come to a CEO or a department head. Yeah. So the department head or the functional head is also looking to have an interaction. So if there is a junior guy who wants and is asking, actually, it's a good mix, right? So striking a conversation is extremely important, even if it is 2 minutes. Yeah.
Great. I think that's great advice, Manoj, because I don't think people, who are there, most people I've seen, I know things are changing a lot now, but a lot of people are reticent. So I think one word of advice is from Manoj is strike a conversation, at least break the bridge. And I think he's shared it from the other side. It's actually very lonely. And that's so true, because, there are so many things that are happening which a leader can't share, right? I mean, as a CEO, you have to, the buck stops with you. And, let's say, for example, for a salesperson, at a junior level, his sales target may be the most important thing. But for you, the environment, the regulators, the board, there are so many more things. So it's so rightly put that it's very, very lonely at the top. And leaders look forward to, having a conversation with people. So all those people who, meet a leader now in the lift, take his advice. I think there's a great piece of advice there, right? So let's just come down to one more thing. Is really in terms of resilience, right? You said something very important where, you learned an early lesson where your father said, look, life is a long haul. But what have you done? How have you been able to bounce back? And what's your advice to others in terms of, being resilient?
Yeah, so I think it's important for everyone, but not how, I always say that whatever you plan, you're not 100% sure that you will be able to take that or achieve that plan. But planning is important, right? And sometimes you would have failures coming in those planning. How do you reward your individual failures? I know many organizations started this recognizing, rewarding failures. Yeah. But is it at an individual level, how do you reward yourself with a failure by not, going or getting depressed, but looking at it, what are the learnings out of it? Yeah. And I think that is the basis or the foundation for a resilient behavior, because essentially what you are saying to yourself is, yes, I have failed. These are my learning, but your vision or your goal or your purpose for life is still intact. Yeah. So you're not defocused from what you are trying to achieve. It's a momentarily blip. Now the moment could be 1 year. The moment could be 6 months.
Yes.
So it's a momentarily blip, but that 1 year or 1 month in a 30, what we start at 23, we retire at 60 plus minus, right? Give or take. Yeah. So in 35 years, that 3 months, 6 months of period of moments where you have failed should not impact, from your purpose or objectives of your life. I think that is the basis of then you bounce back and look at it, differently. You are learning from there, and then also you go to your well-wishers. Yeah, in any organization where you are working, there are more well-wishers for you. There are more people who want you to be successful. Always, that's the way of looking at the organization. Yeah. And if you go to them, I'm sure they will give you their pulse of, wisdom, their experiences to come to make your plan even better. So you have your learnings. So from failure, you go to your well-wishers, and you have a much more robust plan. And then your bounce back is not only just bounce back, but it's much more stronger bounce back here.
Great. I think, what you mentioned was is very right. I think the learning you take out of some event which has not gone your way, right? So one mentor would say, failing or fail, or I think our illustrious president would say, fail is first attempt at learning. But the person who's going through it at that time, really, goes through a very tough time. And one of the things that I've asked that has helped me when I coach leaders who, come and talk about something similar like this is, and the question I ask them is, tell me, in 10 years' time, how relevant do you think this particular incident that you're going through is going to be? And, those leaders who are able to think through and actually say that perhaps it's not going to be as significant as what I'm going through today. So I think the learning, I think that's the critical takeaway from your feedback on this. I think what leaders should really look for. And as we come to a close, I think one question that Debashish had was, in terms of purpose, what is your purpose? Is there a purpose that you have in life? Would you like to share that with?
Yeah, I'm in healthcare. So the purpose of life is to, give access, and improve quality of life. I think we can, as someone in the industry, can play a significant role, and more so in countries like India, but also in many other emerging countries. Healthcare access is still a challenge. I think our effort to make a society a better place is that's the purpose, and that drives me. I'm absolutely passionate as healthcare, worker in some form, as in the industry, to look at how can we give a better quality of life for patients who are suffering with so many diseases.
Okay, so great. There's one more question that's come up because
Sure.
is really before, and that's from Manoj, and he says, like, sometimes when you fail at really the top, right? Not early all in your career, let's say, for example, and those sometimes failures can be taken at quite seriously because you're at almost at the CXO level, and let's say, for example, you were aspiring for a particular role, like a CXO role and it goes to somebody else. How do you bounce back from that, or what is your advice?
Yeah, see, I mean, it's a race. Yeah, in an environment, I don't think that every single race you're going to win. Yeah, so if you are aspiring for a position, for example, if there is a position in, I don't know, global role or whatever, and if I would raise my hand, I also know there would be 5 other people also raising their hand. And in that, if you are not being chosen for that role, rather than just feeling down, I think the question you should ask yourself, what you can do to prepare yourself so that next time around the opportunity comes to you. What are the competencies for the required role? What are the experiences required for that role? And if you seek feedback around it, probably a little bit better prepared for next time. Does that guarantee the role in next time? Definitely not. I think being pragmatic also is important, because otherwise you will lose your mind. Yeah, and and Mudit, coaches like Mudit, which helps CEOs with the mindfulness journey, would get more opportunities to encash that. But I think that's important for us, that we do not take it for granted that the next rules are on our lap always, all the time.
So I think what I took away from that was learn from what is required, even if you have missed out. I think the learning, right? So I think that's come through very honestly in all your responses is whenever things don't go your way, yes, there is perhaps some emotion attached to it. It may take you a little while, but fundamentally, take it as a learning opportunity and be honest and look really deep within and say, what are what competencies, what do I need to do to make sure that another situation that comes out, I'm better prepared. So I think that's great advice. It calls for a lot of honesty from within a person, because, when you're already at that level, a lot of people, believe that what's really helped them succeed, and they're very often, they might just think that they're very, very good. So that honesty that you talk about, where you can actually take it as learning, is great advice. So we're really at the top of the hour. And, I'd just like to ask the audience if there's anything else or your last words of advice, to people who've been on the show, what would it be?
I mean, I think we spoke a lot. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, we are living in a world which is information overload, right? So simplify your life. Look at things which gives you enjoyment. Yeah. Where there is a larger purpose to your life. Be passionate for that. I think that is what will drive you. If you're not enjoying the role, it's then difficult for anyone, including yourselves, yeah, and the people working around you as well. I think that's my general advice, and being authentic, honest about yourself, also the surroundings. I think that's that would be my two cents on it, Mudit. And I know, everybody goes through a different experience, yeah. And I'm sure the audience in this have also more experience than me than on certain counts, right? So that they can apply their learnings accordingly. Yeah.
So thanks so much, Manoj. My key takeaways really, if I was to even, like you said, was simplify life. 2, look at life as a marathon, right? There's a wide journey. Third thing I'd say is, in terms of resilience, learn that, take it as a learning opportunity. Fourth, for a lot of people who've talked about career, take your own career in your own hands and try and, take charge of it rather than leave it to the organization. Whether it's within or it's without. And most importantly, for all those, aspiring leaders who meet CEOs in a lift, make sure, as Manoj says, take the advantage of actually striking up a conversation, and don't be so worried about, that question, whether it was the right question or not, because, leaders are lonely too at the top. And I think that's a very frank admission, and they love to hear from people. Thank you so much for so much advice on how do you manage your own life and in this whole journey of leadership. Thank you once again, Manoj. Thank you, viewers. And we look forward to all your support, and we'll be back soon. Thanks again, Manoj.
Thanks a lot, Mudit. Love the conversation. Yeah, thank you.
Okay.